Hello, and my name is Peter Rushmer, and I'm your host today of a Half Dozen Things podcast. A Half Dozen Things is a podcast for business owners and professionals just like you. Whether you're an underdog hungry for success or you're already smashing it but want to continue to level up, we're here each week for you to get insight and learning from the very best in the business. No fluff, no BS, and no self-proclaimed gurus talking about how easy business or life is. Just real, frank, and raw conversations.
Good morning everyone on LinkedIn and on Facebook. This is a morning coffee live with me as I look at the only real news that's hit the headlines this week, which is the driver shortage and the driver hours that have been extended yesterday by Grant Shapps, which has obviously hit everyone, and everyone's a little bit shocked. Sneaky Watson trying to push that through on the day of the semi-final for the European Championships, and then to bring it in the day after the actual final itself. A bit of a shocker, but yeah, what a great game of football yesterday. That was amazing, wasn't it? Well done, England. So yeah, big shout out to the guys there. So this morning I just wanted to have a bit of a chat through what the issues are around the driver shortage that people will have seen, and then also a little bit of an update on what those rules look like, or what my interpretation of those rules look like for transport operators. So I've already seen a comment popping. Hi Sam, how you doing? Good to see you, mate. Thanks for joining. So from a driver shortage point of view, we've picked up that the news are reporting that there's issues with drivers, a big shortage of them. We're starting to see gaps on supermarket shelves. So the news are reporting around Haribo not being able to be stocked, and there's shortages of fruit and salad in Sainsbury's and all of that stuff. Anyone who's in the transport sector, morning, Martin Jones as well. Hello, good to see you, mate. Yeah, anyone who's in the transport sector will know that it's a nightmare trying to find drivers, and there's been huge shortages. The RHA are reporting something like 60,000. I've seen other headlines where it's saying more than 100,000, for example. So we've got a major challenge or a major issue in the transport sector around finding drivers. Now, drivers do all sorts of different sectors and they operate in all sorts of different industries, but overall, there being a shortage will impact both goods to stores and shelves and products on shelves, and the ability for us to have stuff delivered to us. But it will also affect the prices of things as well, because what's happened now is there's a very competitive marketplace for operators to try and get drivers working for them. Good morning, Stephen. Good to see you. So why have we got this driver shortage? Well, pre-COVID, there was already a shortage anyway, but there's kind of been this perfect storm. I spoke on a previous podcast with James Adcroft, who was absolutely fantastic, and we sort of discussed this perfect storm that's occurred, where you've got the issue of Brexit, you've got the challenge with COVID. So COVID's presented multiple challenges, particularly around a lack of tests. So 30,000 less tests than there would have been took place last year due to COVID. But then also there's been a lot of foreign nationals who have decided to go back to their own country as part of Brexit or part of COVID, go and find work in the other countries. So we've seen a reduction in the amount of foreign nationals into the UK and carrying out driving. Then the other issue is IR35 that's been pushed through as well. So IR35 is around, some people may or may not have heard of that, but that's where we had self-employed drivers, and it's called it's to stop what's called disguised employment. So that's when people were carrying out work on a self-employed basis, but really they were sort of operating under an employed contract, so to speak. They were just working for one or two haulers, and therefore the HMRC weren't getting the tax payments that they should have got. And I'm not challenging any of that. I don't think but the timing of it has sort of aided to create this challenge that we're seeing now. And then overall, there's just a general shortage coming into the sector because of the poor image. We've got challenges around people seeing it as a long-term career because people are talking about autonomous vehicles coming into the sector. So I think that's a bit of a challenge. It's not seen as a long-term career. But overall, really, we sort of look at all that stuff. But the real why is the challenge around conditions for drivers. So the conditions in the UK just aren't good enough. As part of sort of having a look at this, Kent, for example, just in the first week of January after Brexit, they handed out 32,000 fines just for parking in Kent, and that just sort of goes to show how drivers feel treated, the different conditions that they have to put up with where we stay, and on side of motorways, and obviously safety and security are a big challenge as well. Long hours, it's generally really quite hard work. And to top off all of that, if you were interested in driving as a career, well, what would stop you from being a van driver? Because the disparity in wages isn't a great deal. It's much less regulated because in the transport sector on HGVs, it's very, very highly regulated, which we'll come on to in a moment as we look at the relaxation of what those EU drivers' hours looks like. So there are lots of solutions potentially to this. There's no silver bullet, and Grant Shapps had a good opportunity yesterday to roll out a load of great suggestions and a load of great ideas about how we can improve this situation. And I guess I make this video as an opportunity to try to articulate what potential solutions, genuine potential solutions to solve the HGV crisis. I've created 6 points, half dozen things which links nicely to the podcast. Yeah, thanks, Nigel. You can hear me now. Perfect. Okay, so one of them, issue number one, would be around making HGV drivers skilled workers from an immigration point of view. So we have the opportunity to be able to bring more skilled workers in who have got HGV licenses into the UK. Thanks, Dan. Good. I'm glad it's back. So bringing more skilled workers into the UK to be able to carry out driving work would be the first potential solution. Obviously, the second one is around increased testing. So we need to have more testers. We need to have more tests. We need to maybe consider the fact that one of the conversations I was having is about taking a slightly more pragmatic approach to HGV testing. Where drivers are having to wait a long time, or provisional drivers are having to wait a long time to take a test. I know initially they do a reverse bow, and if they fail that, it's test over. Well, that test is booked, and I just think, what about the consideration of, you know what, driver, stop there a minute. Let's just have a bit of a chat, have a coffee, calm down, and let's have a second go at that reverse, because in the real world, that's potentially what would happen. And actually, we'll not be a little bit, I'm not saying more lenient, because we only want safe drivers going onto the road. But actually, if a driver does cock up a reverse, I know in the real world that's going to be a big problem, but maybe testers have a bit more of a conversation, because in the real world, what's actually going to happen is that driver's going to go, well, he's going to have failed his practical test, but he's going to rebook it 2-3 weeks later, and then he's going to go back and hopefully, he's going to nail those manoeuvres and pass his test. Well, maybe we can just actually be a little bit more efficient in the way we're testing. I'm not saying we should pass drivers that aren't safe to be on the road. What I'm saying is maybe we can be a little bit more thoughtful around how we use that time when people are taking their tests and whether they're ready or not, and be a bit pragmatic with that. It's just food for thought, something I thought about. The third thing is that we need to make the sector more attractive, a better career for people, and that is a big challenge in itself. And I could go on all day about how we can make the transport sector more attractive. We really do need to work on how we communicate. We need to improve rates is the fourth one. So not only drivers' rates, but generally to operators as well, because at the moment what we're seeing is as supply and demand, as we've got a reduced supply of drivers, we're seeing demand for drivers going through the roof, and wages are having to increase in line with that. That isn't sustainable for a lot of operators, and we're going to see some family operators who are fantastic businesses potentially really struggle to employ drivers, and that's a challenge, because a lot of the time the market is driven by price, and actually there's some really good employers. But overall, if you speak to drivers, and I do look at the different forums, it's not just about wages, it's about conditions. The conditions is the key thing, and they're the things that we really need to look at. Other ideas that I've sort of spoken about with previous podcast guests is, what about subsidised testing? It's very, very expensive to get your HGV license. So one, it's unattractive, and two, it's really expensive. No wonder, right? So what about having subsidised testing? What about those people who are looking for work? How about giving them interest-free loans to be able to take their test? That would be a really good potential example, or giving subsidies to smaller companies to be able to train their own drivers and supporting them. Particularly new drivers, very hard to insure. So what about subsidising and supporting operators from an insurance point of view as well? There's lots of things that can be done that isn't just extending driver's hours, which is essentially what we've got and got pushed through yesterday amidst. I like to think there's not underhanded tactics, but I think to address the driver shortage on the day of a European semi-final, and for the reduced hours to then come in the day after the final on Sunday, it does feel like things have just been pushed along. But I'm seeing there's a big reaction from the sector actually on my socials, so that's really, really good. So from a relaxation point of view, what does that actually mean for operators? I've sent an update out to a couple of our customers around what that could look like. And actually, it's a little bit ambiguous. And I've got on my phone here what the link is, and I'm happy to drop the link into the chat later around the relaxation of the driver's hours. But what it says is, from Monday, the retained EU driver's hours rules can be temporarily relaxed as follows. The replacement of either the permitted increase to the daily driving limit from 9 hours to 10 hours, with one of 11 hours, open brackets, allowed up to twice in 1 week, close brackets. I'm not really sure 100% what that means. In usual times, it's 9 hours driving for an HGV driver with 2 10s in a week. And what that's saying there is, I'm not sure if it's allowing us to increase to 10 hours a day with 2 11s, whether it means it's normally 9, however you are allowed 2 11, so extended days on 2 days. So you're allowed that, but overall 56 in the 90. So the other thing is a big or in capital letters. The requirement to take a regular weekly rest period of 45 hours in a 2-week period with an alternative pattern of weekly rest periods as specified below, and an increase to the fortnightly driving limit from 90 hours to 99 hours. This enables 2 consecutive reduced weekly rest periods to be taken. So usually weekly rest periods, you'd have a 45 standard rest, and then you're able to reduce every other, but you do have to pay back that reduction. What it's saying is essentially you could have 2 over 2 weeks, you could have 2 reduced 24-hour rest periods, allowing drivers to drive for longer periods, and obviously up to 99 hours rather than 90 in a fortnight. So ambiguous on that initial driving hours thing. So it'd be really good if someone has got what that exactly means. If they're willing to put that in the comments, then that'd be great. But at the moment, based on what I'm reading straight off here, that's a little bit ambiguous about what that is. However, the timing of the relaxation is coming in Monday, and it's going to run until the 8th of August. Okay, and if you want to use the relaxation, you do have to pre-register with the DFT. Okay, and there's a form on the link that you go in and you complete and say that you want to use it. And then at the end of the period, you have to report back who used it, how many times, and why they've used it. So it's not something that can just be used willy-nilly. It's really, really important to highlight that fact that we need to pre-approve it, so to speak. One of the other things that's in there as well is that obviously from an enforcement point of view, drivers will need to do a print off of their tacho when they are doing that, and write on the back why they're doing it and what the extension is that they're using. So we need to get a bit more clarity, hopefully, over the next couple of days, and I hope to get some more clarity on that for people. So I'll let people know that as I find out more, and I'm open to feedback on how that's been interpreted. But I'm interpreting that you've got an opportunity to either go to 11s, or you've got the opportunity to go to 99 in a fortnight and reduce twice. So that kind of covers it, really. It is really important that there's an inquiry line if people need, and it's really important that companies do make sure they pre-register to use it, and that drivers do print-offs, because from an enforcement point of view, I assume that it's going to need to be a robust process is going to need to be in place to make sure we do that. But it's worthwhile just noting sort of finally as a note that driver's hours rules are there for two reasons. And one is for fair competition, which is fine, because if you're going to extend the hours, then fair competition is met. But the other reason is for road safety. So we're now in a position where we're potentially, drivers who would usually break those driver's hours rules would potentially come into fines, and they work long hours already, and they're normally threatened with fines for doing that. And now we're asking, the solution from grant shaps is to ask drivers to actually extend those rules, which they would normally get enforced and fined and have regulatory action. So yeah, bit of a strange one, but I'm interested to hear people's thoughts. So yeah, please do drop some comments, and yeah, speak to you all soon. Take care.
I really hope you loved today's episode, and if you did, please make sure you subscribe and listen out for future episodes too. Please do share it across your social media channels. We hope to reach more and help more people. If you want to find out more about me, my name's Pete Rushmer. You'll find me across any social media channel and my business Flagship Partners, and we're your partners in success across your business. Thank you. See you again soon.